is Sky World News with Luquesa Burak.
Now, Syria's president has issued an amnesty offering a pardon to any crimes committed this year. The move comes after months of protests against the leader's rule, during which as many as 1,000 people are said to have been killed. Meanwhile, the reported torture, mutilation and killing of a 13-year-old boy in Syria has prompted the US Secretary of State, Hillary Clinton, to come out with some of the harshest criticism of the Syrian authorities since anti-government protests began. Now, she said the boy's death shows just how the Syrian government's hold on power is weakening.
I think that, as the President said in his speech last week, President Assad has a choice, and every day that goes by, the choice is made by default. He has not called an end to the violence against his own people, and he has not engaged seriously in any kind of reform efforts.
Right, to get more on that, I'm joined by the British Arab journalist Al-Makhadhi. Thank you for joining me this morning. We just heard Hillary Clinton there speaking. Very, it's been described as harsh criticism. Do you think the Syrian government will take any notice?
I think the Syrian government has got off fairly lightly until now. The criticism has been very slow in coming from the international community, and I think the real fear for America and for Europe is a power vacuum if the government falls. They're desperate to see the government kind of work through this and hopefully be able to win back some support of the population and battle through, because they're worried about what could happen if the government falls. So I don't think it's unexpected that this level of criticism has been fairly slow in coming, and it has just slightly ramped up a slight bit in the last couple of days.
I mean, do you really think that they'd be happy for the government to work through their problems? I mean, would these Syrians be happy with it, the ones that are protesting? Do they want the government out, or do they want the government to change their ways, stay with the current leadership, but just change the way they're treated? I mean, what exactly do they want?
Well, this didn't start out as a movement to overthrow the government. It started out on, a number of local concerns. People were concerned about kids being arrested for scrawling graffiti and things like that. So we didn't actually hear any calls for the president to be ousted until about 6 weeks into these demonstrations. The opposition, the activists across the country and outside the country, haven't really been speaking with one voice. They've gathered now in Turkey to kind of formulate a position. It's unclear exactly what they're going to say, whether they are prepared to give the government another chance to kind of push these reforms that they've been begging for and anticipating for many, many years, and which the government has promised but not delivered on. It's unclear whether they would be happy if the tanks withdraw from the streets and if the soldiers return to their barracks to give the government another chance, because it's unclear exactly who could replace the president.
We're just looking at pictures now. You can probably see them there on the screen. I mean, Syria is a very closed society. I mean, a lot of this footage, people are managing somehow to get it onto YouTube. And certainly us as a news organisation, we're constantly getting bombarded with these chain letters that are going around from Syrian citizens and what have you. I mean, how much do we believe about what is going on? I mean, you were out there when? A couple of weeks ago, in February. And what was the feeling then like?
I think Syria is a fairly divided country. It's not black and white. You have a hard core of support for the president, who are going to support the president no matter what he does. On the other side, you have a hard core of people who want the ouster of the president no matter what. In between, you have an undecided majority who are keen for things to calm down. They probably would like some change, possibly gradual reforms. They want the end to corruption. They want the soldiers off the streets, but it's not clear exactly that they want the ouster of the government. The president still isn't as hated as President Mubarak of Egypt was, or President Ben Ali of Tunisia was, so it's not clear exactly what they're demanding. And I think the important thing to remember is that things are changing in Syria, and people are on the streets not to demand the fall of the government, but in support of their besieged cities and in support of the people who are being killed. And that is what is getting people out onto the streets. OK,
well, I mean, President Assad has announced this amnesty. Is that because he's preempting an increase, perhaps, in violence, as we've seen in Tripoli? I mean, what's behind all that? Will the violence escalate, do you think?
I think it's very interesting, this amnesty. None of us were expecting this. And the opposition has immediately dismissed it as a sign of weakness. You know, we saw Tunisia and Egypt announcing general amnesties, and then their governments fell very, very quickly. I think the timing's important because at the moment there's an opposition meeting happening in Turkey, and the aim of that is to kind of formulate a position to kind of win over the support of the Syrian people and tell them, you know, things will be okay, come out onto the streets, we've got a plan for you. And I think this is the government's response. This is the government saying, look, we're trying our best, we're trying to mediate with the opposition, we're offering a general amnesty even to the Muslim Brotherhood, which is a banned organisation, punishment by death until yesterday. So they're saying, look, we'll release all these prisoners, we'll start a dialogue with the opposition, which they've said they're going to put into place in the next couple of days. So I think this is the government trying to win over the majority of the population. They're in a battle with these activists who are desperately trying to get them onto their side.
OK, well, thank you very, very much, Sahar. Thank you for getting up at this early hour. Thank you very much. Right, we're going to find out now the latest going on in Yemen. And